Okay, welcome back to the Bishy P podcast. I think we're on number 29 tonight, Mr McCue, is that right?
29, yes, the date of birth of myself, 29, so great number.
Excellent. Tonight, I'm delighted and we're all very glad to be joined by Scottish number 1 and also world number 22 squash player Greg Lobban. Hello, Greg.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us. I know that my higher class will be delighted about this one as well, with all my squash examples and squash stories that I give them. So, looking forward to tonight. As ever, we're joined by Mr McCue. How you doing, Mr McCue?
Good afternoon. I'm all right. I'm doing well.
Excellent. And also joined by Active Schools captain Ellie Reid. Hello, Ellie.
Hi.
Excellent. Very fancy room there.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'm going to start us off tonight, Greg, and I'm just going to ask you a bit about your school career. Can you just give a wee bit of background about that?
Yeah. So I went to North Keswick Primary School, but then I went to my secondary school. I was in Fortrose Academy, which is just out of Inverness, and I was there because I actually left in 5th year, but yeah, enjoyed school and glad to have been at Fortrose School. It was a great school.
Yeah, good. What was your favourite subject at school? Do we need to ask?
I mean, PE was always top of the list. If I'm honest, I didn't really enjoy too many subjects at school. It wasn't necessarily where I felt comfortable.
You're not meant to say that, Greg. You're meant to say you loved them all.
I know. PE was by far a standout for me. It was always the one I looked to in my timetable, but when it was, and I think I was always a sporty kid. Always felt really comfortable in a sporting environment. And I know that's not the case for all the kids, but that's where I felt comfortable. And loved the sport and loved PE.
What's your teacher's impression of you? What do you think your teacher's impression of you would be?
Of me? To be fair, I'm not trying to give myself too much of a big head, but they probably loved me because I was always the one that was first to put my hand up for everything, like the demonstrations, everything like that. So, I mean, if you were to ask me the question about all my other subjects, what they thought of me, it might have been a different answer. But I think in PE, they enjoyed me, and I guess I was always good at it because that's what I was good at. So I think they had PE teachers held the highest regard for me, I think.
Yeah. See, before we go on to Ellie, sorry, Greg, did you leave school wanting to pursue being a professional squash player?
I kind of left school actually because I almost wasn't enjoying it anymore as much as maybe the other kids were, or I kind of felt a little bit lost in school. Looking back on it now, I was reasonably intelligent, but I was always falling behind in the subjects because I wasn't applying myself. So I think my mum and dad had kind of got to the point where I actually left school to go to college, and I wasn't applying myself as much as I should have been in school. But then as soon as I got to college, like I was applying myself a lot. Like I studied hard and put in the work, and I think it was because I was studying something that I really enjoyed and I was passionate about. And in college, and then I went on to university. So I actually probably left school more to study something that I really wanted to study, and my parents were happy with that, as long as I put in the work, which I wasn't doing in school. And I did, and then it just kind of steamrolled into, I was still keeping up with my squash and training hard, and it was only then where my coach at the time said that being a professional athlete was a possibility and it is a real job, and that's kind of where it went off. And so I did do college and uni after proceeding school.
Just out of interest, Greg, what did you go and do?
Sports science. So kept it within the sport, but that's what I mean. I kind of, when I was doing all the other subjects in school, this might not be the best thing to be saying to school podcasts, but I was applying myself, but it wasn't until I found something that I was really passionate about, and that might be in geography or maths or whatever it might be for a pupil. But for me, it was once I found that subject that I was really passionate about, I just went for it 100%. And in this instance, it's a sporting subject, and sports science is what what I was passionate about, and yes, I've got that as a backup for when I do leave the athletic sort of career.
Yeah.
When you were younger, did you have any part-time jobs? And if you did they help you develop any skills which have helped you in your professional career?
Yeah, I had quite a few actually. I worked in a leisure centre, small leisure centre in Inverness, and then when I went down to Edinburgh to study, I was a Dominoes pizza delivery boy. Yeah, that was a couple months actually, but I did realise it's not everyone, or I thought people would tip very well. That is not the case.
Really?
So I was pizza delivery boy in my car, and then
Did you have one of the wee fancy signs on top of your car?
I didn't actually know they allowed me
No.
to use my own one, so I didn't actually have to get one of them. If I did the job properly, I might have needed one. And then I took up a job in Sainsbury's as well. I applied for a job of sales assistant, I think it was. So I thought, that's all right. I can sit behind the till and scan some items and sort of do that, talk to people. That'd be great. And then did the interview. They said, yeah, great, you've got the job. And then they said, oh, we'll take you down to your desk. And I was like, oh, brilliant! I've got my own little counter to scan everyone's items. And they took me down to the fish and meat. So I was like a fishmonger for
no chance.
For a month.
Yeah.
Mr
McCue.
The hairnet.
Mr McCue is a resident fish counter man for Tesco here.
Really?
Is he?
I was your rival. I was the Tesco fishmonger.
Well, I wasn't selling.
Displays, by the way. It was all themed Valentine's, Halloween, everything.
I wasn't selling many, so you're probably you're definitely a better fishmonger than me.
Do you know what
I mean, sorry, Ellie, to answer your question, like, did they teach me anything? They definitely taught me like value for money, for sure. It taught me that I needed to be disciplined, even if it wasn't the job I was necessarily after. I knew it was a way to kind of earn some money, and so that I could have that freedom. So I quickly realized it wasn't what I wanted to do passionately, but it certainly taught me value for money, taught me discipline, commitment, and some responsibility as well. So I would suggest people, no matter, don't turn your nose up at any job out there. If it earns you a bit of money, it's great, and as long as you find that something else to be passionate about alongside it, I think I don't regret them anyway. It's a good story, and it was a good part of my life as well.
Nah, that is, because there's a couple of people I've spoken to this week, and it's McDonald's or farm foods or something like that, and it's no ideal, but it's just a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone to bigger and better things. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Could you tell us a wee bit about your journey kind of into squash? Because it's quite a unique sport to pick up in.
Yeah, it is quite unique, and my parents, I guess, with a lot of squash players, they kind of go in because of their parents were squash players, but that wasn't the case for me. They were both like racket sport players, but they only did it for fun. And I played all sports, every sport under the sun, whether it was running, hockey, shinty, which is the sport up north, football, everything, name it. And I played at tennis, badminton, all the racket sports, and I was sort of taking up tennis more seriously, but because I'm from Inverness, from about November to February, the courts were frozen over for those 4 months, and the tennis coach squash coach came out and just said, "Look, tennis courts are frozen. Come in and play squash." And I loved it because I was inside. They were heated courts. It was warm inside. I was just like, this is a dream. So I was able to smash a few balls off the wall, and before you know it, it's kind of a smaller kind of community as well. So it kind of developed into me playing tournaments in the Highlands, and sort of got some camaraderie and friendships with a lot of the squash community there. And I was good at racket sports, so it kind of fell nicely into what I was good at, and started competing nationally, and then got invited to some of the Scottish squash camps, and then started to represent Scotland at junior level, and it kind of spiraled from there. So that's how I got into it. I got into it by playing so many other sports, and it just happened to be that squash was the one I probably had more fun with.
Mm-hmm. You obviously you touched on there right up to the junior level. Talk us a bit more about your professional career and how that's been the kind of journey you've been on.
So yeah, I guess the end of my junior career, I played in sort of the bigger events, and I was finishing kind of like in the 40s, 50s in the events. And as a junior, there's not many juniors that kind of go on to senior level at that, and especially you really need to be established as a junior to kind of make it into the senior ranks. And so I never saw it as a potential career move or a job to be a professional squash athlete. But I entered when I was studying, I entered a squash competition which did have some money in it, and I ended up. This was when I was training kind of full time as well, but. I got to that tournament, and I think I won my first one, lost in the second one, and I was just about to leave, and then they kind of gave me a check for £200, and back then that's £200 still a lot of money, but back then it was like that's an unbelievable amount of money just for playing squash. Like that, if that was it kind of opened my eyes to be like, well, if I can actually get through further rounds, I can make some money doing this. So. I mean, £200 was probably a few weeks being a delivery driver at Dominoes. So it was kind of just a way of being like, okay, I can earn this by playing squash, and it just made me work a lot harder. It made me believe that okay, this is actually a job, and because no one actually told me that growing up, and yeah, made me work hard, made me want to achieve sort of the best things in squash, and that's kind of how I got into it, and that's how the professional tour started.
Brilliant.
But just a question on that. Obviously, part of your job as it is to travel all over the world. From what I've seen in the research stuff like that, it's all over the place. Is that right?
Yeah. Squash is.
How do you find that? Is that a bit mad?
It is mad, yeah. And it's something that, again, when I was growing up, it was never something I thought I would be doing. But I mean, in a normal year, we're visiting America, Egypt, Hong Kong, Australia, South Africa. We were there last year. Like it really is global. Qatar last week. It really is. You could be in any country in the space of the year, and you can kind of pick your tournament. So, I mean, when I was starting off in my professional career, I did 3 months out in Australia to kind of kick my career off, and then New Zealand, and then I came back. So it's worldwide, and that's probably the thing I love most about my job. Essentially, is traveling the world and playing squash. It's pretty unbelievable to think about it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right.
Oh, is it me? So, what is the best part about being involved in squash?
Probably that. I mean, probably the traveling and seeing so many different places. I mean, I'd encourage. I'm sure there's a lot of people on here that won't know what squash is necessarily, or seen it live. But essentially, we can put our court, which is 4 glass walls, basically anywhere in the world. Like, so last month we were playing a tournament in front of the pyramids in Cairo. So one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's like we just put the glass court there outside. It's like no shelter, no roof. It's iconic, really. It's like you drive up, you get your minibus up through the pyramids, and then you get dropped off. You do your warm up in front of there, and then you step on court. So, I mean, there's other. In January, we were playing in Grand Central Station in New York. Again, I encourage everyone, like, these 2 places, like, type it into Google and have a look at it, because it's unbelievable to see it in Grand Central Terminal. People are just waiting on their trains, and they're walking across the front wall. So the wall that you hit the ball off, they're kind of just walking to the train. They stop and they watch, and yeah, it's pretty cool. The Peninsula Hotel in China, we play on the roof there, and it's mad. It is mad, and I think the more people can get exposed to it, the better, because it's very cool.
Yeah. Greg, just a bit kind of aside here. You made kind of 2 comments there, just about obviously folk maybe not seeing squash live. and then obviously the fact that you'd won £200, and if we kind of compare that to other kind of sports, it's not a great sum of money.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a major factor there is the fact it's not an Olympic sport?
Yeah, I think it's a big factor. I mean, I think the Olympics just brings a spotlight onto every sport there is, and especially the smaller ones. I mean, the bigger ones can probably get away with it anyway with the amount of corporate sponsorship there is in it. But for squash, you're right. It's not. I'm saying £200, but it's like even when you're a top squash player, it's the money's not on the same caliber as your tennis, your golf, and your footballs and stuff like that. So that's just part of the parcel of it. But you're right. I think if it was an Olympic sport, it would create a lot more exposure, which would lead to sponsorship, which would seriously help squash.
What's your thoughts, personal thoughts on that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to really put it without sounding just crazy about it. It's just, it blows my mind that squash isn't an Olympic sport. I think it's quite corrupt, if I'm honest. The whole Olympic system and how they decide. I think, from what I can understand, it's about 8 to 10 guys that are sort of in their 70s and 80s that kind of make these decisions, and there's a lot of bribery going on, and unfortunately squash just doesn't have the money to bribe them with. So it's my personal opinion on it is that for people for sports in the Olympics, it has to be your pinnacle. So when I watch the Olympics and I see badminton and gymnastics and athletics, I'm thinking, brilliant, these are all top sports to be in the Olympics. But when I see, as much as I love every sport, like the football, the tennis, the golf, the rugby, I just think it's a joke, because no one cares about it. There's rules in the football that you must have. You're only allowed 3 over 21 players or something like that, and it's a joke. I would much rather, even if I wasn't a squash player, I'd much rather see a squash event there, knowing that every athlete is there, is thinking this is the pinnacle of my career, and I'm going to give absolutely everything for this. It's like the measure that I put on it, I would probably say would Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy rather win Olympic gold or the Masters. And there's going to be no question about it. They're going to say the Masters. Whereas I think if you've got to ask all the athletes, it's got to be what's the pinnacle of your sport, and that's the Olympics. So I think they're almost in danger of losing a bit of their stature at the moment with some of the sports they are including, and that's a shame, because I think the Olympics we don't want to lose the Olympics like that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Back to me, yes. Greg, I'm quite interested in the highlights of your professional career.
My highlights, I mean, I won the World Doubles Championships with my partner Alan Klein, who's the Scottish number 2.
I've played him, by the way, just to get it in there. Aye.
How'd you get on?
We'll move on.
So I won with him in Darwin, Australia in 2016 it was. So that was nice. I mean, we've played most of our time playing singles, but that was the World Championships, and to win that was pretty special. My biggest title to date was last year in Hong Kong. I won in squash terms, it's like a 30,000 event, and that was my biggest title, winning against a few higher ranked opponents. So, I mean, those are the 2 standout highlights that I've achieved. But competing at the Commonwealth Games in 2014, I didn't get a medal. I got to the quarterfinals of the doubles event, but that's something that even with 5 to 10 more years in my career, I don't think I'm going to get a moment like that. Playing the home Commonwealth Games, that sort of week or 2 weeks was the highlight of my career, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be saying that when I'm retired as well.
Yeah,
brilliant. With everything though, Greg, obviously there becomes low points in your career. Is there any particular low points that have perhaps helped shape you for you to come back from?
In October 2016, just after sort of the World Doubles, I tore my hamstring, which put me out of the game for about 8 months. I needed to get it surgically repaired and yeah, kind of screwed back on, as the surgeon said. And yeah, that was definitely a low point. That kind of hit home pretty quickly, that because I never really suffered from any injuries before or any setbacks, and yeah, that kind of, I was on crutches for 2 months after the surgery, and yeah, that was pretty humbling experience. Not being able to do anything for yourself. I've obviously got a lot of independence at that age, at 24, 25, and I was competing worldwide, traveling the world, and being someone that was very active, and that's basically all I sort of knew. And again, it's something that I was good at, and that was just completely stripped away from me. It was got to the stage where I had to get other people to help. My wife helped me shower, to bringing me food, to making me hot drinks, making me breakfast. Like, it was very humbling. And yeah, sort of 8 months, I kind of was getting back into the rehab and stuff like that, but it was a big setback. I think I was number 30 in the world at that stage, and I sort of dropped back into outside the top 100, and I was basically starting from scratch again. So that was definitely the lowest point in my career. 8 months that I won't necessarily get back, but it was actually probably the most gratifying as well. I definitely appreciate things a lot more now, not only just on the squash court, but off court as well. It's I mean, it's definitely not something that is tragic. It's just something that, to me, it was tough to deal with, and but now is kind of, I've got a lot more gratitude to be able to play squash, to be able to travel the world, to do what I do as a living is cool, and something that I appreciate a lot more now.
Yeah. We speak to our kids quite a lot about training, Greg, and it's something I'm really interested to know about as well. What's a kind of typical week training-wise for you?
For me now, I'll train 6 days a week. I mean, this is not during COVID. It would be 6 days a week, twice a week, maybe 6 days a week, twice a day, maybe even 3 times a day. But they won't all be tough sessions. They won't all be sort of busting a gut, totally out of breath every time. But I mean, I'm on court at least once a day for Monday through Saturday. And then the other sessions are sort of conditioning sessions, whether they're sort of going out for a run, bike rides, yoga. I'm doing a lot more now. I'm actually doing a lot more sort of lower intensity sessions to look after my body more after my hamstring injury. So it's I mean, that's a kind of typical week. I'm doing a lot of strength training about 3 times a week. And there's a lot, obviously, stuff that I'm doing on the court as well.
Yeah. Am I right in saying you're based in Sheffield now?
I'm based in Sheffield, yeah. I did 8 years in Edinburgh, and I moved down here 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Good. Brilliant.
In school, we're always encouraged to set goals. Is this something that you do? And if you do, could you give an example of any long or short-term goals that you've set?
Yeah, I think goal setting's really important, because it gives you structure and something to aim towards. I don't tend to put too much pressure on my goals. I don't try and think of them as sort of do or die sort of examples. It's just more of something to sort of aim towards. So like my long-term goal at the moment, or for the past 4 years, has been looking towards the 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games. So I put that as a goal. I put that as something that I want to perform really well at, but if I don't perform well, or I don't achieve what I want to achieve, I'll know myself that I could have done better. But as that long-term goal, I always just set out to be something that I know I'm going to do everything in my power to perform well at that event. And it might not happen. You've got to expect it not to happen, but as long as you've done everything you can to achieve it, then I can be satisfied. So that's the long-term goal. Short-term goals are just for myself right now on the squash court, is just to add a bit more variety in my game. So that's my short-term goal, and that's something that you can sort of work on every day when I sort of wake up or go to sleep at night. That's probably what I'm thinking about the most. But yeah, long-term goal is more, I kind of set maybe a year or two or even 4 years in advance for the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah. What impact do you think the virus will have on squash, Greg? Both kind of participation-wise and financially?
Yeah, I guess you're already seeing it at the sort of professional level at the moment. There's not as many tournaments going on.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, because I think the sponsorship, and as I said before, the corporate sponsorship is where the sort of the money comes from for the tournaments to be played. So we're just hoping that they'll stay on board with squash and keep those events running, because squash sort of needs that support. Participation rates, I think it's struggling at the moment, just with most of the clubs being shut, because squash is quite close contact with each other, so they struggle to get through the rules and guidelines with that. So I'm just hoping that, obviously, with this news on the vaccine and everything seems to be looking a little bit brighter now. I'm hoping it'll improve, and that squash clubs can financially afford to keep their clubs going and keep members happy and keep coming back in. Hopefully, it's given people a bit of time away to kind of appreciate that squash is a great sport and a great way to keep active, and they'll come back. So, as I said, it's a great game for physical and mental health. So hopefully more people come on board.
Just on that, obviously, Grant touched on a couple of things as well. What could we actually do to get more people playing?
I think the exposure thing is a big thing. I think at the moment, I know not everyone watches squash. It's not on sort of Sky Sports or BT Sport or anything, but it is on Squash TV and it is on Facebook. And if you follow like the PSA Squash Tour on Facebook, you'll see a lot of clips, and I think just that exposure to, and so that it's viable, people can start searching squash clubs, because there are heaps, but usually squash players only come into squash if they know someone from squash, and it's kind of just joining your friends for a game. So it would be nice if people saw squash on the TV and be like, oh wow, I actually want to try that, because I don't know many people that will get into squash and then after a few months being like, oh, now I'm a bit sick and tired of that. So it just needs people to get involved and play, and they'll realize that it's so much more fun than going to the gym, and it's in an hour on a squash court you're going to burn a hell of a lot more calories than you would do at the gym. So I think it's a great way, and you can do it with your friends. So it just needs that exposure for people to be like, I want to go and try that, and for the clubs to welcome them in, because I know they'll be extremely happy for more memberships. Yeah,
just to talk about exposure there, Greg. Egypt, squash is massive. Like, it's like their national sport in Egypt. What's happening across there that's so different to basically every other country in the world?
From what I get told from the Egyptians on tour, is like their education kind of comes second, where if they show any sort of sporting ability, then their education probably comes second and their sporting comes first. And so that means that they can kind of take the whole morning to practice, then they'll go and do a few hours of education in the afternoon, then go and practice at night. And when we go to Egypt, when we're in the UK, if we go to a squash club after school, there might be 5 or 10 kids on court playing, but you go to Egypt and there's literally hundreds. So, I mean, by the ratio of numbers, you're bound to get a few very good ones by the end of it. So I think it's just their culture as well. They know sport can offer so much opportunity that they kind of put a lot of focus and attention and make sure that people are aware that this could be a potential career path. Whereas I feel in the UK it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of make sure you get your good education first, and then if you show some potential, then you can pursue squash and sport afterwards. So that's kind of main difference. And but it's mad that Egypt are that good. I think they've got 5 of the top 10 players in the men's and potentially even more in the women. So it's tough.
Yeah, brilliant.
What advice would you give young aspiring squash players or the youth of today?
I mean, the youth of today, I think I would say, like, to enjoy your, to enjoy school, to enjoy your youthful years almost, because there will be, if someone told me this when I was a kid, I probably would have turned my nose at. But you've got plenty of years to enjoy the young guy. You've got plenty of adult years to enjoy, to more stressful times like buying a house or dealing with the pressures of earning some money and stuff like that. So enjoy that, but then also once you find, don't stress about what you're going to do when you get older, but once you do find something that you're really passionate about, like 100% go for it, knock down any walls that are in front of you, and just strive towards it, because I really don't think like life is too short to find something that you're not passionate about. And once you do find that, I would, if I could go back, I would do things exactly the same, but I would just pursue the squash, pursue sport, because that's what I was extremely passionate about, and I ended up being good at it. So that's what my advice would be to the youth of today.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Now, just before I go into the last question, Ellie came busting into your base today with a joke, right? And it was quite possibly one of the worst jokes I've ever heard. So I'm actually putting her on.
That's not my joke. That was Adele.
Right,
That's
so
Adele.
here's your big moment.
Oh, no, that one.
No,
that one. Your one. No,
your one.
What do you call a man? Italian man in sliders?
What's that?
Philippe Falop.
Oh,
Such a good one.
Anyway,
I'm glad you didn't put me on the spot, because that would have been better than my one, Ellie.
Oh, superb. Last question, Greg. If you were to choose any 5 dinner guests, who would they be and why, dead or alive? Now, bearing in mind, Diego Maradona's just chucked it about 5 minutes ago, so you might want to include him.
Has he really?
It was on Sky Sports just before we came on.
Wow. All right. 5 dinner guests. I'd take Kevin Bridges, because you'd add the comedic value. Andy Murray, because he's probably the person I watch most as a sports person. Who's cooking? Well, I'd take Gordon Ramsay, because he wouldn't enjoy anything that I would cook, so he would probably go into the kitchen and make something else. Who else? I'd take Kelly Holmes. I listened to a podcast, the High Performance podcast, the other week, and she was on, and she's got a really inspiring story. So, I'd take her for sure, and David Attenborough as well. I think he's one of the most interesting characters around, and can definitely teach us a few lessons on how to live our lives as humans, and enjoy watching all his documentaries. So interesting 5 there. I don't know how they would all combine, but I'm sure it'd be an interesting dinner date.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Greg. Really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Cheers, guys.
I think we'll leave with the message of take up squash every day. If you're watching, take it up, please.
Squash is the best
increase
sport.
Participation. Yeah, correct.
That's
Ellie,
all.
thanks very much for joining us, Ellie, and
Thanks for having me.
make sure that you follow us Twitter at Bishy PE, and subscribe to us at YouTube and also on Spotify. Okay, guys, thanks very much.
Cheers, guys. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, take care. See you later.
Thank you, Greg. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys.